Nyx is one of the best frames now. I said it, I mean it, and until a new frame or new rework comes out, know that this is the truth. I put up a poll asking you all about the Nyx rework. The majority said that the new Nyx or new human Nyx is hot, as well as saying that she's a lot better. Many of you didn't say unbelievable, but again, a lot of you just said she was hot, so I don't really know if you would have picked that or not. So looking to the comments for more information, I saw that most of you said A++ or S tier. Some of you said she didn't change much at all, which I looked at, mouth wide open, shocked, confused, dazed, mind boggled, stunned, speechless, and let's not forget, fuzzled. In simple terms, I was confused and my head hurt. I didn't understand how someone could see this rework and not think she's awesome, or at all different. So I'm gonna take an in-depth look, or should I say, a closer look at Nyx. Now some history. Nyx first came out on January 29th, 2013 in the first update of Warframe, update 6.0. So I'm not kidding when I say she is an old frame. She basically came out when the game did. Crazy how old this game is. So of course, much needed rework, and it was a great one. Obviously this rework coming out on December 13th, 2024 with a 1999 update. This also gave her an amazing skin, a new type of skin, which is a proto frame. Now what about the Prime? Well, Nyx Prime came out in September of 2014, so not too far out from when the original was released. Also, a quick fun fact that you could have guessed, Nyx and Excalibur are said to be brother and sister. This is because when the game first came out, they wanted to make genders for each frame, but they scrapped this, although she still looks similar to Excalibur. Now enough with the history, let's look at her abilities and how they work. First, her passive. Enemies within affinity range that are afflicted with confusion, aka radiation, will increase her critical chance for secondary and primary weapons. This starts at 40% but can increase to a max of 200% added crit chance if you have 5 enemies in range, affected by radiation or confusion of course, which is incredibly easy to achieve. This will be paired with her third and even her second, or a helmet that doesn't really make any sense, but I'm having fun with it so it will be included and will help with her passive. With this, you'll easily hit red crits and power through enemies. Very satisfying and easy to get, so let's move on. Her first ability, which is called Mind Control, when you look at an enemy you can use this ability on them by controlling their mind. Not really, but yes really. When you use this on an enemy, it will be invincible for the duration set on the ability. The mind controlled enemy will also have a damage increase, which can further be increased by dealing damage to it yourself in a short time before you can no longer increase its damage. Now, this ability is only useful depending on how you play the game. For example, big Necros fan, specifically because of his summoning ability, then you will love Nyx for this reason. Slap on duration and arcane molt efficiency, and you will have the enemy live for a long time. This mind controlled enemy will actually be useful. Like I said, it has added damage with this multiplier. But what if I told you it also had added radiation damage, making this pair with your passive depending on how it spreads to enemies. Not the most useful way to boost your passive, but it can at least give you one enemy or an added 40% crit chance. Lastly, the augment for this ability, Mind Freak. This adds an extra 1000% of added damage while gaining 25% attack and movement speed. Again, based on a playstyle since this focuses solely on the enemy. Is it necessary even for a playstyle focus on this? No, I don't think so. But if you want to make the enemy crazy strong and faster, go for it. One thing to add too, before I move on to the second ability, the new arcane that gives you strength based on your minions or the ones that you summon, this doesn't count. This is not your minion. So if you put this arcane on, you won't get that benefit. Moving on to her second ability, Psychic Bolts, which is really good, but dependent on the situation. The main way this ability works is by stealing the enemy's defense, meaning it will steal shields, overguard, and armor if the enemy has it. If there's an Xmas unit, you will get overguard. If it's a Grineer enemy, you'll get armor. If it's a Corpus unit, you'll get shields. I believe you get it now, so let's dive a bit deeper into this ability. There's a cap on all of this. You can only steal so much shield, armor, and overguard. Of course, the overguard can be affected by your strength. You'll likely be using this ability, maybe not as a way to boost your tankiness, but a way to armor strip, or now defense strip, making it much easier to kill any enemy. To do this, you'll have to hit the cap of 100% damage reduction, which will get rid of all shields and armor, but not all the overguard in one hit. This doesn't really need much strength to get to it, so it won't be something to stress over. Keep in mind the amount of time an enemy has its defense is gone isn't forever. There is a time where they will get it back. This isn't much of a problem since you can just use the ability again. But again, something to keep in mind, when you kill an enemy affected by this ability, it will shoot off 2 extra darts to other enemies nearby. The augment for this ability isn't too bad either. The augment mod is called Pacifying Bolts, which gives Nyx 3 additional bolts while adding radiation or confusion as the mod states. But confusion is the same thing as radiation, so whenever I say those, it's pretty much the same thing. So this can be good for your passive and can be good to have a ton of enemies stripped of their defenses and even more when you kill them. This can be good on a build that focuses on this ability, but it's still really good without the extra effects and bolts, so it's not really necessary. Her third ability, Chaos, is pretty fun, and guess what? It causes a bit of chaos. Now this ability, as you may see, doesn't deal damage. No, instead it gives you your passive. See what we're getting at? Remember how I said confusion is the same thing as radiation? Well, in this ability, the reason it's chaos is because every enemy looks like you. Or used to in the past, I guess. Point being, they are now very confused and will now shoot their own. So you won't be as much of a target as you were before. Most of the attention is away from you. But all these enemies now have radiation and confusion, which means your crit chance has gone up. Of course, as long as there are 5 of them affected, which again, very easy to do, and you're in range of those affected, even when you kill off a few, there will be so many affected that you won't notice your crit chance going down for a while. The base stats on this, range and duration, are pretty good. Building on range will obviously help you with your passive, and duration can be on there as well, if that's something you're looking for, but again isn't necessary. Now the augment, Chaos Sphere. This makes chaos into a ring, or I guess a sphere, although you can really see it as a ring. This makes it so enemies can enter into the range of chaos and be affected, where normally it just affects those who are in the range when it's activated. After half of the ability duration, it will start to shrink. So the age-old question, is it useful? Kind of, but not really. Sure, like the others, if you really like it, go for it, but it's also not as useful as the other augments in my opinion. I don't think it's worth taking up a mod slot, so let's just toss this to the side. But I guess if you have very low efficiency, then maybe you'll need it, but in my builds, we'll have some good efficiency, or at least some good energy consumption. Now lastly, her 4th ability, Absorb. You probably won't be able to guess what it does, so let me tell you. It absorbs. Get it? Good. It absorbs any damage. You're invincible. Hint hint, nudge nudge, this will be a part of the build. But normally, how does this ability work? Well, you sit in the air with a bubble around you. This soaks up any damage coming towards you. You can move like this, but only up, down, left, right. Just moving like a floating bubble would. This no longer soaks up energy as it used to. Only cast it once and have the duration do the trick. Whatever you have as your duration will affect how long you're in the bubble. Duh. Once this ends, you will no longer be invulnerable. Depending on the amount of damage you absorb, you will have added weapon damage and of course dish out damage from the explosion. There's also a speed multiplier, but who cares? Now the fun thing about this ability, the augment. So you get what it does. Big bubble absorbs damage, and based on that damage is how much is dished out in the explosion, and how much is added to your weapons. But what if I told you you can also be invulnerable while using your weapons and abilities? Well, with this augment, Assimilate, you can have the bubble on, still doing what it normally does, but you can walk, roll, and jump while using any one of your weapons and abilities, becoming, quite literally, the strongest frame in the game, because you just can't die. Unless of course you run out of energy. This does consume energy the whole time, but especially in survival missions or any mission that gives you enemies that come after you, an abundance of them, like the bounties in the 1999 mall, you will never notice this ability soak up a ton of energy. Like I said, you can use other abilities, so you have to build for this. Hint hint, nudge nudge, we need to focus on energy. Also, arcanes that require you taking damage will work with this ability, which is something I will get into right now. Going into my invulnerable or invincible build number 1. I want to show this one off first because it's really simple. It doesn't take much and it's great to just be invincible. This build can be a part of anything, which will make sense later on. But in the first one that I'm showing, this is my fun build. I will wait to explain myself on the helmet, but this build is, like I said, simple. First things first, the augment. Obviously we need this augment in order to really be invincible. What this augment Assimilate does is it allows you to walk in your bubble. Your bubble makes you invincible, collecting all, and I mean all types of damage. You can shoot, use your abilities, roll, jump, whatever. We already talked about it. On this build I have Prime Continuity, Narrow-Minded, Equilibrium, and Streamline. These are my main mods focused on this invincible build. Streamline can be swapped out, as you can see I only have 2 Forma on her. But this does enough for me, where I really don't worry with energy. Duration and efficiency will help with the amount of energy you consume while in your bubble. Of course, this is especially needed when you take into account that you will be casting your other abilities as well. Of course, Arcane Shards do play a role in this as well, which I will talk later on. So as of now, we're going to move on to the other abilities. Stretch, Transient Fortitude, Power Drift, and Augur Reach. For her 3, and in this case only, her helmet, I wanted a decent amount of range. Not as much where I needed Cunning Drift or overextended, I just needed a good amount to offset narrow-minded. Could I get rid of one of the duration mods? Possibly, but energy consumption is more important to me in this build. Or second, all I needed to do was to get enough strength in order for that defense strip to say 100%. Also, the duration helps with this ability, as the enemy can regain his defenses over time. Now, I believe the mods are talked about enough, so let's look at my shitty arcanes. You get the picture here, I think. Impetus is an arcane that gives ability strength and efficiency if the frame has and uses an ability that has a unique status effect. So, what unique status effect does she have? Radiation, duh. Then this other arcane, Arcane Rage, is just to help with weapon damage, so swap it out with any weapon damage boosting arcane you want. Or just do whatever for this. The Xless mod, I prefer the added strength, but you can always do Cunning Drift for more range if you like. The Helmet ability is something I want to talk about a bit, so please hear me out. Remember, this is my fun build. This helmet is from the Rockman Corvix. This is a pillar that deals radiation damage by sending out pulses of it. As you know, Nyx is full of radiation, so why not even help out her passive even more? Radiation is for her passive. Without the passive, we wouldn't care about this. So do you know exactly why I would add this on her kit that already gets the full crit chance easily? Energy consumption. The pillars don't take a whole lot of energy. They can stay in one place for a while using new enemies, not just the ones you casted your 3 on. So it can just sit there, giving you the same buffs over and over again without having to recast it. Obviously it has a duration, and the range isn't crazy, not on this build at least. But having 2 next to each other and being near it can easily give you the added 200% crit chance for a while. Can this be seen as useless because of her 3? It sure can, but I love it. I think it's fun. I have seen it to be helpful, and what I believe to help me out even more when it comes to energy. So you can laugh at that, that's fine, but this is what I like and what I feel like I should share. Now moving on to a more serious build, the Unkillable build. This one kind of has 2 versions. Besides one mod, a helmet, and an arcane, this build is pretty much the same.
But this is the Unkillable build, right? So this must be a slightly different build for her 4th.
Wrong and right. The main idea and purpose for this build is to not use that augment at all. That's crazy, right? Instead, we want to utilize her kit and mobility, a big setback with the augment on. Most missions don't allow you to move slowly, it just doesn't work that well. Survival, defense, sure. Mobile defense, any slow stationary mission will obviously work out for this augment. But if you want to be quick and move like normal, I suggest this build. Also remember that word, suggest. This isn't a video on how I have the best builds, so keep that in mind. So everything is the same except for the augment mod, pretty much. It's missing, obviously, and I swapped it out with adaptation to help with staying alive, since we lost the invincibility, the guaranteed not dying thing. I swapped out a weapon damage arcane for energize. Yes, I know I need more energized arcanes, whatever. But the main thing that makes us unkillable and mobile, gloom. Whoa now, gloom? That's stupid. You're a dumbass. Well, let's see what gloom does. It slows enemies down, and most importantly in this build, gives you health. And what is one thing Nyx can't do with her normal set of mods? Get health back. So we are going to slap this health stealing helmet on and boom.
But wait a minute, equilibrium, you could just get health from energy.
Yeah, but what are we focusing on? Energy. We don't want to waste a ton of energy. Now could you say without assimilate that I don't need to focus on energy? Sure you can. But no, it's still a big part, especially in her kit, and not having flow on and using some Arcane Shards and everything, you don't really want to steal health from energy. Especially if you're doing a quick mission, you don't want to steal that health from the energy where you need the energy more so. You want to steal energy from the health orbs. So now look at this. You can move like normal, get health, shield, armor, and overguard by just using abilities on enemies. And you shouldn't really lose any energy. So you will be a defense stealing, health stealing, red crit dealing monster that can move like any other frame. Sure, go ahead, make fun of it. I enjoy it. I like bullet jumping, it's quick, and I like how this build allows me to do it, while being able to always regain anything I lost in my health bar. Now I said that this can have 2 versions. This just means you can keep the augment on. Would glue make much sense then? No, not really, but if that's what you prefer, then you can keep the augment on. Doesn't make much sense, but that of course is an option if you want to move quickly without dying, outside of the bubble, and then switch to moving while being vulnerable. So maybe that is how it works well together. Maybe that makes the most sense, having the best of both worlds. I don't know, that's up to you. I prefer this build without the augment, hence why I have a build focused on the augment. Now of course, my Arcane shards. These aren't anything special, just stuff to help with energy, strength, and damage. No, they aren't perfect. No, they aren't perfected, they're not all Tau forged, but the orange shard is used to deal more damage to those enemies affected by radiation. And, once again, in case you forgot, all she does is deal radiation. Blue and yellow shards are going to help you with your energy, and of course the red-pink one will help with added ability strength. Maybe I would put another orange shard on, or maybe I would do casting speed. I don't feel like she needs it, so you can really just use this to your playstyle. Whatever this extra slot is, use it however you like. Now this is pretty much all I have for this video. There isn't much to say about weapons that go well with her. Again, any radiation will help if you need it, but I believe her abilities grant the full 200% crit chance pretty easily. Maybe a weapon with decent crit chance so it can now just always be red. Maybe she'll be the best friend to upgrade your secondary and primary weapons. That's an idea. Let me know what you thought of this video. I hope this build or in-depth guide was good enough for you. If not, or you have any suggestions, please let me know. I would like to do more of this, like one on mag, since it's kind of fun to talk about and just to kind of, I guess, study on. So I would like to know if there's any way I can make this better for all of you. Now before I say my ending line, I want to thank everybody who's joined the Discord server. If you haven't already, that will be linked in the description below. It's also on my YouTube. Just go in the about section, you see all the links. That's going to be one of them. There's also a post about it. But so far as I'm making this video, or at least talking right now, we have over 70 people in the server. I didn't think I was going to get that. I thought I would only get 20 or something like that. So I appreciate all of you joining, all the support. I mean, just to see everybody talk the way they do and support me like this is nuts to me. I don't understand it, but it's amazing. Now with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.